Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful to be gathered tonight to discuss these important items on our agenda and pray that we might be able to communicate and articulate our thoughts and feelings and be able to have good discussion that would be of benefit to the city and to our citizens. We're grateful for this beautiful land in which we live and to be able to enjoy the change of the season and the incredible leaves and colors that are surrounding us at this time. We pray that we can have this gratitude in our heart for all that we have. And we ask for these things in the name of the Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Would you please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, we'll begin our meeting this evening with an audible roll call of the commissioners. Sharon Call, here. Mike Marchbanks.
Here.
Jared Showers.
Here.
Rob Callis.
Here.
Stephen Johnson.
Here.
And Karen Danielson is absent this evening. Scott Thompson.
Here.
Okay. And the next item on our agenda, this is a time for the approval of the minutes. This would be for the minutes from September 26th, 2023. And commissioners have received these ahead of time and had a chance to review those. I've reviewed those. I didn't see corrections this time.
No.
Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, look good.
What?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as printed.
I'll
second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, the next item on our agenda is a time for public comment. This would be for any items that are not already on the agenda for this evening. And are you here for the plat amendment agenda item? Okay, okay. Let's go on then to item number 4. This is a plat amendment. This is for Vigorin. I'm sorry. Vigorin Consolidation. And our applicant is Ron Vigorin. And would you like to come up to the front, please? And if you have others that would like to come with you, that's fine too. Yeah. And there's a place, should be a place you can sign in.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then our presenting staff is Mary Barnes.
Thank you.
I'll turn the time to you.
Thank you so much. This one is fairly straightforward. You actually had one kind of like this, I believe, last May. There was a Kay Heaton. She also consolidated her lots, so easy money for you guys. Anyways, so yeah, the applicant, Ron Vigorin, he's looking to consolidate his 2 lots on 600 North. The reason behind this is that he does want to add on to his house to the east, so that would eliminate that property line and therefore a side setback. He does own both lots. It does meet the requirements of the R120 zone. I will pull up. I said that one of the exhibits listed is the previous subdivision plat, but I forgot to attach it. So here it is. And if you can see that lot 5 and lot 6, those are the Vigorin properties. He'll be eliminating this middle lot line. As you can see, there's already no PUE on the rear side and the east side as well. So that will be continued in the updated Vigorin plat, which is right here. Oh, it's not letting me zoom out. Well, you can see here the easements. There's not one on this rear lot line and there's not one on the eastern lot line. They'll still keep the 10-foot public utility easement and this 10-foot irrigation easement. I mean, staff supports this plat amendment. We believe that this is great that, there you go. Great that the applicant wants to consolidate his two parcels. Like I said, it meets the minimum lot size, frontage, and area requirements. And we don't see any issues with this plat amendment. And the city engineer, the city engineers have reviewed the plat, and they will work through some final technical changes on the plat. But other than that, if you guys have any questions, I'd love to hear them, or for the applicant as well.
I don't have any questions. It looks really straightforward and like there isn't any problem with doing that. So you're gonna add an addition onto your home then,
No,
huh?
we're thinking that it's not cast in stone yet. We're just thinking about that.
Okay. And it said you just don't wanna have to worry about setbacks and property lines and that kind of thing.
Well, and we've been there for almost 5 years now, and we love Lindon.
Yeah.
We actually love this extra space too. We love having that breathing room. So
if you wanted to, you could just keep it empty too.
yeah, and that really is probably where we'll wind up is having it. We may do the small addition, but other than that, the lot itself will still be vacant, and we've done some improvements to, but the original thought that we had when we first bought the 2 lots was that we would have, as you may observe, we have a handicapped daughter that lives with us, and at some point we're probably not going to be able to care for her. So we have another daughter who lives just nearby in Pleasant Grove that was going to build a house on that other lot.
Oh.
But those plans have all changed, and so we're thinking that this would be a good thing to do for us.
Okay. Well, I don't see any problems with it. Mary, the only thing I was looking at this address on that overview, and you've got 51, and I don't know if this matters other than for records, but you've got 51 west and 63 north, 600 north.
Yeah, you're right. Sorry about that. It is
So
63.
I don't know if you want to just change that to west, so just so it's, the address is right. But other than that, I don't see anything else. Are we ready for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the applicant's request for plat amendment approval of the Vigoran consolidation plat subdivision with the following conditions. The applicant will work with city staff to make all technical corrections as necessary to the plat before recording. Before plat recording, the applicant will update the final plat Mylar to include notarized signatures of owner's consent to dedication and obtain signatures of all entities indicated on the subdivision plat attached here too, and all additional items of the staff report.
I second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. So the motion carries.
Wonderful.
So thank you for being here with us, and
Thank you for your,
hope that works out well for
consideration.
you.
yes, we appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Mary, you're going to send me what we need to do to
Yep, I'll send that to
clear
you
up everything.
tomorrow.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to have you. Okay, the next item on our agenda is an ordinance amendment, so we do need to open a public hearing. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion, do I have a second?
I second it.
Motion and a second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And this, our applicant is Lindon City. Our presenting staff is Mary Barnes. And I'll have you go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So this ordinance amendment is about the clear view around driveways, and it's specifically aimed at increasing safety for pedestrians and motorists surrounding commercial and residential driveways. So first I wanted to kind of talk about what clear view or clear vision area is. So that's the just the area that needs to be clear of obstructions. Usually people talk about this in the context of a corner lot. As you're turning left or right, you need to be able to see. There can't be any obstructions on the corner lot as you're turning left or right, so that you can see if there's any oncoming traffic, oncoming cyclists, that kind of thing. So that's generally what people talk about when they're talking about clear view. It's an area that needs to be free of obstructions for the purposes usually of safety, health and safety. For our city, we have a 40-foot clear view triangle, for example, on corner lots, and most cities in Utah copy that 40-foot clear view triangle requirement. Let me come to the, get to the example for this next part. Okay, so something that Lindon has not addressed in their code is the clear view around driveways. Like you saw in your packet, there are, many cities do address clear view around driveways. Lindon doesn't. So this is that area shown in these little red triangles, where it's like the point of intersection of the driveway and the property line, back 15 feet. And then that connection between those two points. That's that clear view triangle. Oh, street right-of-way line, you're right, it's not a property line. So there are 3 reasons why staff is proposing this ordinance amendment tonight. Number 1, this is a safety measure for homeowners. As they back out of their driveway, they'll be able to see behind them and see, pedestrians, kids walking home from school, cyclists. Something that the engineers brought up is, even though they're technically not allowed on sidewalks, there are more e-scooters, e-bikes, things that are much faster that, might need a little bit more reaction time. So this is a safety measure to hopefully prevent an accident in that way, to hopefully increase the visibility of oncoming traffic for homeowners. If they're backing out on Center Street, we want them to be able to see around any fences they have in their front yard, any vegetation, that kind of thing, to the extent possible. Of course, we can't regulate every single thing in someone's front yard, but this is another thing to try and help increase that safety for homeowners. Then in commercial zones, this would apply to things like signs, fences, vegetation. If you think about pulling out, trying to get back onto State Street, you don't want any signs standing on either side of the driveway. You need to be able to see around them. You don't want any big trees. You want to see the oncoming traffic to be able to pull out onto State Street or any other commercial road, industrial road in the city. It also, number 2, it also provides staff direction. So we actually have been using this as like a best practice for a while. We have a thing called fence permits. So how it works is that you're not allowed to have a fence that is taller than 3 feet tall within your front yard setback or 20 feet of your side yard. If you do want something like that, then you have to get a fence permit. So people will apply to us, and we have been requiring, as a best practice, that this clear view area is clear of fences. If you can imagine, if we allowed 6-foot vinyl fences right next to driveways, that would completely eliminate any area that drivers could be able to see who's walking down the street right now, kind of thing. So that we've been using that as a best practice, but of course it's not enforceable. We can't enforce a code that doesn't exist. So that's why another reason why we're bringing this to you tonight. It'll help us be able to enforce this, and also just be able to help show people that this is something that's important, that the City Planning Commission, City Council, and staff have thought about, written out, and we strongly believe that this is not only a best practice, but also a great choice, not a great choice, sorry. It's a great thing to have to increase safety. And then third of all, the Utah State Legislature has specifically been trying to get cities to provide plain language for standards. So instead of leaving it up to the city's discretion. So this means, you know, again, this is a best practice. This is what we want to see, but it's not actually in language anywhere, except, I mean, I guess there's this diagram, but there's no actual code language. So adding this ordinance amendment would help help contractors, homeowners, you know, commercial landowners know exactly what the requirements are and what we're exactly looking for. It takes away our discretion, definitely, but it also will help decrease any confusion. So the city engineers did work with us on what a clear view distance should be, and we decided, so this is the upper car is the length of a Suburban. I think it's like 18 feet long. This is one of those bigger residential cars. And then this lower one is the length of one of the largest Sprinter vans possible, which is one of the longest cars we could find. I'm just trying to think of anything possible. So as you can see with this Sprinter van, if this is the person right here in the front driver's seat, he or she will be able to see through this 15-foot area down to anyone who's walking across here, right? And this Sprinter van, its rear is right next to the sidewalk. So before they even get onto the sidewalk, they should be able to see if there's anyone in this area. So that's where we came up with that 15-foot. We just took the longest, longest Sprinter van possible. And that's kind of how we came up with that. Of course, in commercial and industrial areas, there are generally much larger, much longer vehicles. But it is true that most commercial industrial lots in Lindon have been specifically designed with truck bays or things to help those larger vehicles turn around, or good traffic circulation, so there aren't customers backing out of a commercial lot per se onto a road, And then, of course, if a larger vehicle is backing out, there's only so much we can regulate. If a semi is backing out onto State Street, I don't think any amount of clear vision is going to help them. They're just going to have to throw on their hazards and hope for the best, right? So that's why we're proposing to keep that 15-foot, mostly to help customer employee cars, maybe smaller delivery vehicles, that kind of thing, as they're turning onto State Street or down in the industrial area. And of course, it will help semis and box trucks as they're going out, nose first as well. Again, that's for things, you may not, especially, on State Street, you're probably not going to see a fence right next to the sidewalk, just because we require landscaping strips, but you will see things like signs and vegetation, that this will help us kind of control that a little bit better.
This is not just on commercial streets. This is residential.
This is residential and commercial. That's why sorry.
Industrial, isn't it?
So this is citywide, I should say. But I'm trying to show you kind of what it would look like from a residential versus a commercial point of view. They are obviously different things that would be obstructing a vision, a mailbox versus a monument sign.
I think it's actually more needed in residential than in commercial.
I would agree.
As one who rides his bike on the trail, You have to be careful. 'cause
Careful.
People are coming out.
Exactly. That being said, this is only for new construction, new improvements. So we wouldn't be going through the city and doing code enforcement on, everyone who's built, a fence or has a massive tree or something. We're not interested in that. Don't even have time for that. This would definitely, those properties, those improvements would be grandfathered in. This would be for new fence permits, new questions about, new landscaping plans as we get in these new water-wise landscaping plans. These are just things that we'll be looking for. And, of course, signage permits in commercial areas. So I did provide a few examples from other cities. Many other cities do have diagrams, which I think works great. So, great that we have one as well. The engineers put that together. We are proposing, some other cities will measure, from the front of curb or something. We're proposing to measure from the street right-of-way line. That's just to increase the amount of area and time that someone has to see a pedestrian or oncoming traffic. So you'll have hopefully a full sidewalk, of area to look through. It kind of strange.
That's one question I had.
Yeah.
You're saying that's from, when you say that, it sounds to me it's from the curb.
So street right-of-way line. Yeah, let me,
Property line or street line?
yeah, it's from the property line. Let me show you.
It's actually not from the property line, so most properties in Lindon, the property line's 2 feet behind the sidewalk. So we're saying right behind the sidewalk.
Well, it's on the,
And if there's like park strips, and we talked about that subdivision last couple weeks ago, that park strips, so how would that?
Usually your park strips within the right of way. And so it would be on a case-by-case basis because we'll look at the county parcel map and determine where that right of way line is.
Okay, yeah, if you had something to demonstrate that, I guess,
yeah.
I don't even if you did a Google
Yeah, let me pull this over.
view of a couple of properties and so.
Let's do, oh, that's a corner lot. Let's just do this property, for example. So, this property has their property line at this, like, at the front of sidewalk right there, but it has this park strip right here. We don't actually, as you know, we don't actually require park strips in the city, but some developers have put it in. So, that clear view line would be, triangle would be measured right here, this intersection of the side of the driveway and that property line, which should also correspond with the street right-of-way line, except for in places where maybe the right-of-way hasn't been clearly delineated. That's when we'd have to talk with the engineers. Anyways, so here, it would start here on this corner, go up 15 feet, and come back 15 feet like that. Which, you're right, that does include
Those are
sidewalk.
you're probably a little bit less,
Yeah,
clear view area. But it still gives you enough, if there is one with a park strip.
mm-hmm,
So if you're reviewing site plan, landscape design, I guess, for a new construction, and you see somebody's putting in a big pine tree right there, is the city saying, no, you can't put that there because of this clear view, if we pass this ordinance?
Yes, that's correct. We'll ask you to move that out of the clear view area.
Is it pretty well understood what kind of fencing would constitute clear view? Like chain link, it certainly does, but there was a new fence that went up here on Center Street that's a 3-rail ranch fence, and I think that qualifies, but.
yeah, our engineers, they're kind of the ones, with that fence on Center Street, they got a fence permit, and we went out and we walked the ground there, and the engineers, they made the determination that this is not site obscuring,
Yeah.
so it is permitted to be here.
Yeah.
So the ordinance says the planning director and the city engineer to review each one of those.
Those fence permits.
So, yeah, we'll go, like Mary said, we look at them on a case-by-case basis if they're taller than 3 feet. And so, in fact, that one, we're still working with the property owner on that one as well, so.
Well, and that's such a busy intersection, you wonder if it is really safe to have
Yeah,
Anything there.
side, it's not as side obscuring. I have a lot of 3-rail fence, but it's side obscuring.
it is a little bit, but as we were out there and we walked it, we felt like there was still, by the time you came up to the stop sign, there was good enough, clearance that you could see through it.
It's a major improvement at that property. I'm certainly glad to
Sure
see
is.
it.
Where is that at?
Center Street and Fourth
Fourth.
East.
So,
This property.
Yeah, they've been,
if
they put a
someone
lot of work
wanted
into
to
that
put a
property.
fence, they can put a fence out on the property line,
They fixed
as
that.
long as they came in 15 feet from the edge with a clear view portion that's no higher than 3 feet.
They wouldn't have to, if it's 3 feet, they don't have to meet this clear view requirement.
Mhm.
Well, say for example, they went 6 feet, 6 feet, 6 feet, at 15 feet, they drop down to 3 feet.
Yeah.
For clear view.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
typically, we're not gonna approve a 6-foot fence in the front yard on most properties.
Okay.
I guess we could with a chain link or something, but yes, I think on that one, we're gonna look at all the factors, because whether it is unobstructed, so we can see through it, they're gonna have to file for their fence permit. So there is a possibility we could allow, let me just think about this real quick. Can I see the ordinance?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, so if it's not obstructing the view, you could get a fence permit for, let's say, a 6-foot chain link in the front, you could, as long as it's not obstructed. So you couldn't put slats in it or something like that. So this just affects if it's 3 feet or taller and you can't see through it. Now, we did make some changes to the ordinance since we sent it to you, and I'm gonna have Mary go through those, real quick.
Okay, yeah, that was what I was about to bring up, is the update that me and Mike are proposing. So, as you can see, this is the existing clear view for corner lots code right here. It actually hasn't been updated since 1985. We took this code, copied, pasted, changed the important, things about 15-foot clear view to what we presented here tonight. But it talks about, it says exceptions can be made for a reasonable number of trees and or other vegetation pruned so as to permit unobstructed view to automobiles as determined by the city code enforcement staff. So that's language that's been around forever, and we did get some comments back from other city staff saying, what does that exception process look like? Why is it city code enforcement? Wouldn't it be planning staff? Things like that. So to combat that, we're proposing this change, and it would also change that corner lot requirement as well. So it would change that language to say, vegetation and trees are permitted in the Clearview Triangle area, provided vegetation is kept to a maximum height of 3 feet and trees are pruned at least 7 feet above the right-of-way to not obstruct a clear view by motor vehicles. So an example of that is in your packet. It's this Clearfield City has this. You can see they allow obstructions under 3 feet, and that's something that the engineers have said. They say generally 3 feet tall, something that's 3 feet tall can usually be seen over by, you know, a very small passenger car. So that's just kind of that standard is 3 feet. So, you know, you can have something 3 feet tall, but then trees have to be pruned so it's not within this red area between 3 to 7 feet. For, you know, passenger cars.
Question?
Mhm.
I see, that we're saying this is, we're not going back to these other ones, okay? But are we notifying the public that the ordinance has changed, going online and notifying that this is a change and that they are grandfathered in? But the problem that I see is down the road, say 10 years down the road, when a kid does come on a skateboard and get hit, and it's one of the older properties that doesn't have the clear view, how are we gonna go back and go 10 years from now and go back and go, oh, that one was grandfathered in? We really don't know. So it almost seems like we need to notify the public that this just changed.
About the requirements.
About the requirements, so maybe to get some voluntary compliance with those ones who are out of compliance. So
Yeah.
that this doesn't come back to bite us 10 years from now when a kid gets hit on a skateboard.
I think that's a good idea.
That's a
We
great
could do
idea.
a newsletter article, we could do some Facebook posts, social media posts about this, and just think, hey, the city's adopted this
Right.
ordinance, you know, here's some, for those that predate this ordinance, here's some good practices to keep in mind as you consider your properties. You know, something
Well,
like that.
and as long as it was stressed that it's a public safety
Yeah,
issue, it's not just something the city's requiring residents to do, it's for the benefit of the city and their safety.
yeah, we have some really good friends in our neighborhood, and, I'm not saying this was the total issue, but there's a property in our neighborhood where the roses are 7 or 8 feet high on the corner, and their little boy was heading to Cub Scouts, came out on his bike, and car couldn't see him and hit and killed him. And, you know, I personally think it was part of that vegetation problem, but, you know, but he was also going quick on his bike and late to Cub Scouts, but, yeah, I think some good practices would be a good thing.
Yeah, because as an investigator on that thing would go back and go, oh, look, it would make note at least that there was a violation of the clear view.
Yeah.
Well, and in a situation like that, even if it was the kid's fault, whoever hit them would never get over that.
They
You
haven't
know.
either, no.
No. So it's just a safety issue for all of us. Does anyone else have questions for Mary? Or is there anything else you want to bring out?
That was my presentation. I will say that, like I said, we got some comments back from some city staff that had some concerns, and one of the concerns is what exactly is going to be regulated. So I want to be clear that within these clear view triangles, we would be regulating fences, walls, hedges, vegetation, that kind of thing, but probably also mailboxes. Oh yeah?
Especially if it's like the community mailbox or those brick mailboxes that, again, taller than 3 feet. But, you know, those seem to be the
Those really
biggest.
solid ones.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that could also encompass the people who have like brick pillars on both sides, right, on both sides of the driveway, which would definitely be in the 15 feet.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, we don't have any public here to comment, so why don't we close the public hearing and then we can have any discussion and then move forward.
Move to close the public hearing.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Okay, is there any other discussion on this?
Not so much a discussion as whenever you make an ordinance like this and you have sort of pre-code and postcode.
Mhm.
Gosh, how do you ever enforce it? I mean, I think it's great, and I wish you could almost go back and say, this is the code now, you need to come up to code. Not so much with fences, but growth.
Yeah.
Growth, shrubs and stuff,
Shrubs and things
Yeah.
just grow and,
rose bushes and shrubs and,
And I think, you know, if we do see a public safety issue, we're more than willing to reach out to someone and say, hey, this,
you might consider this.
yeah, you might consider this, and, you know, I did read about did you guys have a new do you guys have a copy of that new book from the,
The
they
land
handed
use
them out,
one?
yeah, it's one of the land use books.
It's like yellow.
have it, yeah.
That one.
Yeah, in there's this exact same case where there's a big tree on the corner, and one of the cities in Davis County was bringing an enforcement action against her, and she got an attorney, and then she went to the city and said, look, I'm grandfathered with this, and the city, you know, did away with their enforcement action against her. So, but that's something we can reach out to property owners and say, hey, for public safety, for engineering concerns, this is an issue. Could you help us resolve this?
Right. I don't know how else you do it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but I think it's a good thing going forward.
I think most people, if they realize that they're putting others at risk,
Yeah.
will try to make changes.
And I think in most cases, the people backing out of those driveways themselves recognize how hard it is to back out without, you know, unless they have their favorite rose bush that they don't want to get rid of.
Okay.
I watched on each morning, and Center Street is just a bustling place with children. And boy, there's a lot of driveways that come out there, and those children are hard to see.
They
I
are.
worry about them.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any, reading the ordinance, is there anything that allows for exceptions that could come before the planning commission? Or
Let's,
is it
Come to
black
city
and white?
staff,
I mean,
wouldn't it?
or that can go to staff. I mean, 'cause I could see like somebody coming in and saying, oh my gosh, like for example, they have those decorative posts on each side of their driveway.
yeah,
That's
something
2
like
foot
that.
square. You know, 2 foot square post, could that possibly be an exception? Or I mean, we just can't imagine all the different
Well,
variations.
it would be
that-
permitted if it was less than 3 feet, right? Tall.
Yes, if it was less than 3 feet.
So it does say, so this is the fence code. It isn't getting changed today, but, so this is the fence, it governs the fence permits that we look at. It says, all appeals of decisions of the planning director and city engineer will be made to the planning commission. So that means if they're not happy with our decision, then
We're the
they can
appeal
appeal
authority.
to you guys. Yeah, but they're,
But it's not like you can be, I don't want to give some false hope on that though, because it's not like you can override it, you have to follow the code.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
And that's what our current code does, is kind of give some exceptions for landscaping. I'd like to get out of the exception business if possible, as much as we can. What I'd like to do is just see how it goes, and if we need to make some changes, we can definitely do that if we need to.
Yeah, it's just really hard when you make an ordinance to foresee all the things that might
Yeah.
pop up down the road. But yeah, as long as we're willing to say that we can go back and amend this code like we have on some of your other things, then that's fine.
Yeah.
When something pops up that we didn't foresee.
Okay, are we ready for a motion on this? There other questions, or it sounds like the majority of us would like to just see how it goes, the way it's written. And then if there's things that come up, we can adjust that. Is that right? Okay. So do I have a motion for approval?
do that.
And it'll be a recommendation to the city council.
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2023-21-0 as presented.
Probably,
As presented, it's not in our staff report, but
yeah.
as presented
as
by
presented.
staff.
Mhm.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. You've done a really good job putting that together.
Thank you. That was a lot of Mike.
Well, both of
It's
you.
nice to have the city engineers take the model of a car and put on there and really study that, so. Okay,
Okay. Now, our next item on our agenda is also a public hearing. So need another motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. And our applicant is Lindon City. Presenting staff is Michael Florence.
all right, thank you, commissioners. So, last time we talked about this item for short-term rentals, we discussed options on allowable occupancy, parking requirements, having the chief of police review the ordinance, allowing only one short-term rental on a cul-de-sac, and notice to surrounding property owners. So I highlighted in, come on, what did I do? So let me pull up the wrong one. So I highlighted a couple of the changes for this evening, and I'd like to walk through those with you and discuss those. So on number 1, I changed it from renter to one party of guests. So remember, it said residential dwellings should not be rented to more than one renter at a given time. So as I've reviewed other short-term rental ordinances, I changed that to one party of guests. That was a term I had seen in other ordinances. Number 2, a short-term rental application shall contain the following information, and I listed those items. Basically, these are the items that are in the ordinance that we would require. And then this one on occupancy, I wanted to discuss that a little bit. Let me actually. Make that a little bigger. So I talked with the building official about occupancy, and in the building code, it does have an occupancy requirement for single-family homes, and it has it right here for residential. Now this is for a building code requirement, and so it allows one residence or one individual per 200 gross square feet of the home. So that's the construction of the home, how it's determined. And, you know, so I gave you some examples of Alpine homes there in that Sago Homes development. So their homes are about 3,000 square feet. So a construction occupancy you could have of 16 individuals in that single family home. I don't think that's the number we want to use for occupancy for a short-term rental. There's a couple of other ideas I had for the ordinance. You could increase that to maybe 1 per 500, or we could go off bedroom size, maybe do 1 occupant per 100 square feet of bedroom space. That would give you, if you went off bedroom space on a 3,000 square foot home, for example, on Alpine, that'd give you 8 individuals. or we could just get rid of the occupancy thing altogether and just base it off of parking. How many occupants, if you have so many occupants, you'll see here in a second, I've addressed the parking code. If you have so many occupants, you have to have so many parking stalls. Occupancy is going to be hard to regulate anyways. So I don't know if we want to, take it slow on occupancy, and then if we see an issue, bring that back for another time in the future. So we can discuss that now, or if you wanted to discuss it.
I think it's better to tie it to parking, because you may have a big home and not have really any adequate parking to handle.
Yeah, you might have a brother or sister come that has 8 children,
Mhm.
and you have 4.
And it's hard, and
That
it's hard,
You're overloaded, so I think it's better to go on parking.
and it's hard to say, they have a big family bonus room that has several sleeper, couches and.
Yeah. And the more I thought about this too, the council said, put some general requirements together. And so, this would maybe be staying more with that as,
Well, I think the parking too would make it more difficult for these kids that rent out these Airbnbs, and everybody brings their own car, and all of a sudden maybe you only got 8 people there, but you got 8 cars,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so moving to parking, I put, at a minimum, 2 parking spaces shall be provided for up to 6 overnight guest occupants. For every overnight guest occupant over 6, 1 additional parking space per 4 overnight guest occupants shall be provided. So if you've got 10 people there, you gotta have 3 parking stalls. And so that just gives you a ratio to go up on.
Unless the people are a nuisance, I think it's the cars that put
Drive
most people.
people nuts.
Yeah, put it on the radar that, hey, something's going on over there, 'cause.
Yeah.
I did have the chief look at this ordinance. He and I went through it. And, the question was, are there things in here that are in this ordinance that are non-enforceable or hard to enforce? On-street parking was the one he said was the most difficult, because officers will go to a cul-de-sac, they have to figure out whose cars are whose, And so he recommended taking that out and just putting how many off-street parking stalls are required. Going back to number 4,
Wait a minute, I want to
Yes.
make sure I understand that.
Mhm.
He's saying it's hard, so don't? I mean, if the whole cul-de-sac's full of cars, he just says, I don't want to know. That
He's
doesn't seem like the right answer.
No, he's okay going around and saying, hey, knocking on the door saying you're causing a nuisance with all these cars. But he's saying putting it in an ordinance is more difficult for him to, I've got to now enforce this in an ordinance instead of just forcing it on a complaint issue from residents.
It can be real easy to knock on the door when they have it and go, hey, is this your car parked out here? They go, yes. Well, they can't be parked on the street. It has to be off street. And in this situation, it'd have to be off street, and they'd have to have it based on numbers. Now,
Now, wait a minute, he just said not do it on off-street parking.
I didn't put anything in here that you can't park on the street, but you have to have enough car spaces on the property for vehicles, for your
How many
occupants.
residents, how many people you've rented to?
but you have to have it, but they don't necessarily have to use it.
I mean, we can change that if you want. That was just, that was the one thing that he saw that was difficult to
That is hard
enforce.
for him, but at the same time, for neighbors, they don't want their whole street jammed up with cars.
No, they don't. And that was what led to the one complaint I did get. I mean, we can add that back in that says no on-street parking.
I think you add that in conjunction with this as a precursor to this. You say, no street, it's probably off-street parking must be designated by this, and this. That way the people at least know.
Mhm.
And the officer saying, it's gonna be difficult to go out and enforce that, but at least they know
when someone applies for a business license, they do know that.
They
Well,
do
if someone
know.
chooses to do an Airbnb, they need to know, hey, I gotta be able to park all these cars off-street.
Yeah.
Okay,
I like
that's an easy add-in into the ordinance.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
like it.
may not necessarily be easy to enforce, but it is easy to enforce to say, for them to go up and say, hey, is this your car out here? Yes, how many people have cars out here? These, how many, where that you're supposed to have so many parking spaces off street. You need to move these cars off the street.
I remember renting an Airbnb up in Eden, you know, and there was only, I mean, we have quite a big family, but there was only 2 parking spaces, and the ordinance required, and it was right in their, you know, their booklet that they had, that if you need more than these 2 parking spots, you have to park down the street in this parking lot. You know, so it's not unusual for cities to require that.
Okay,
This, yeah,
I think we ought to require it, that they have ample parking off-street.
Well, I think that's fine, but it's not illegal to park on the street.
right, and that's what I'm just saying, well, that wouldn't be enforceable, but you would have them, if it's complaint driven, the police could come there and say,
How can a neighbor complain about them parking on the street? I mean, it's,
Well, I could see how they can complain. If you're in a cul-de-sac and you can't even,
well, you can complain, but does your complaint have anything behind it? I mean,
well, yeah, I think
it's like
so.
if
you can't use the street, then it's a
Oh,
problem.
if it's blocking the street, that's a totally different thing. But the neighbor's kid's probably parking on the street, you know, so
Well, but
who's in whose way?
Yeah, but
Who
in
owns
a
the road?
cul-de-sac, if you'll go down there, they don't park parallel, they park diagonal, which is illegal. And boy, it becomes just a parking lot.
I mean, that is something you can add to the ordinance. I mean, what you're doing is regulating a commercial use in the residential zone. Whether we should add it or not, you do have that ability to add
Yeah.
it.
yeah, and other homes aren't a commercial use.
Well, I guess I'm okay with having something about parking that is tied to off-street parking, and then probably in the permit that they get, based on square footage or based on parking or both, it says maximum occupancy is 8 or something like that. But again, where the guests decide to park,
Well,
As
why
long as
are
they're
we
parking
restricting
legally.
our wedding in places and putting no parking in front of them? Why in
Gilman
Wadley-
Lane is the
why
only
in
way
front
we're,
of
only
Wadley?
place we're doing
It's
it.
No,
because it's a
all
commercial
in front
use.
of Wadley
Yeah.
Farms is no parking.
And those are commercial uses. Right? So that's the
Are
reason we're
those-
restricting.
I guess.
Are those signs enforceable, or do they just put those up as, just to try to be good neighbors?
Sorry, I don't remember them. I'm wondering if it's more the curve on the street right there is why there's no parking in front of Wadley Farms.
Gilman
And
Lane.
Gilman Lane, it's the,
Gilman Lane is the width.
It's the-
There's not,
Not room for up.
yeah, there's not, on street parking width on Gilman.
You know, if you have a yard sale, and there's a lot of people that come to the yard sale and they all park parallel curb, I don't see a problem with that. They don't own, the neighbors don't own the street, and those people can park there. But when you start looking in a cul-de-sac and see what happens, I've lived in a cul-de-sac before, and it is bad.
Yeah, so
I mean-
when all my family comes over for Sunday dinner, it gets bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of the same thing that happens with accessory apartments, right? We require off-site parking, but I know very few people whose tenants actually park in the off-site parking, they park on the street. And so, right, it's the same, I don't think the ordinance says you have to park in the off-site parking, you just have to provide it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what Jared's saying, is if the ordinance provides it, but I don't know how you enforce.
Part of being a good host is having rules that say, hey, please
Please park, you
park
know.
in the parking that's available and not out on the street.
And it's interesting, because that is going to limit, okay, so let's say a family comes in for a BYU
Hey,
football
Scott.
game.
Let me, just a reminder, I was trying to listen to the meeting minutes for a lot of our meetings recently. And just a reminder, talk kind of close to the microphone, because
Good point.
we go back as staff to try and listen into these, and it's sometimes hard. Like, we started requiring Brian to have a microphone on this table over there, so we can hear what he's saying.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think it's just interesting, because we can come out there and say somebody comes in for a BYU game and they rent this home, but then while they're here, they have family here, and they're gonna invite other guests over, but they're not staying there, so we're not saying that they have to have parking for them.
we're saying overnight guests.
Overnight.
Overnight guests, okay. Okay.
My thoughts are that we need to require it to be provided. As far as the enforcement, I think any of it's gonna have to be complaint driven. Because you can't have a police officer checking on Airbnbs all the time.
And I think it would be hard for a police officer to show up and say, well, I can't do anything about it. It's not, the ordinance doesn't restrict it. I think it needs to, so if there is a bad issue, he can enforce it.
Well, I like this idea where we're sending notices to surrounding properties that have the name of the host or the responsible party. Because I would hope the neighbors would not bother our police department, at least initially, and go to the person who probably is in the best position to do something about it, which is the host or the manager.
So are we saying we don't want to put in there, whether it's enforceable or not, we don't want to put in there the statement that says all, overnight guests or parking is prohibited on the street?
What if they're pulling a trailer with ATVs on the back?
I don't think we can say it that way, but we can say that they have to have adequate off-street parking.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's part of that business license permitting process, is to ensure that they do.
And I think that's what this says. It's saying, gotta have minimum of 2 parking spaces for 6 occupants. If you're above 6, for every 4, you've gotta have another parking stall. So if you've got 10 people there, you gotta have 3 off-street stalls.
I think that's
You've gotta
reasonable.
provide
Yeah,
it, and
they're
it's
required.
required.
So
but
if you're
the
gonna have
enforcement's
14, you
always
gotta
gonna
have
be-
4 stalls.
Right. But we're not in the ordinance requiring them to park there.
No.
Well,
No,
and
and so there's not enforcement, right? Because if they've legally parked on the street, they're legally parked on the street, just like they're legally parked off the street. Which I'm fine with, but I think that's the difference, right? We're requiring them to be there, but we're not necessarily requiring them. I mean, I don't know how you require them to be used as long as they're legally parked.
Correct.
The one complaint I had, remember on that cul-de-sac was, they had a lot of people coming, and they were also allowing you to bring an RV, which was taking up a lot of the driveway. And so that, the RV was taking up the driveway, they had 5 or 6 cars parked in the cul-de-sac, or I don't know exactly how many, but, that was taking up most of the cul-de-sac.
What's
So-
wrong with saying you're required to provide and use off-street parking? Is there a problem with that?
I don't think it is, no.
What do you guys?
It's just
You're
that's,
saying
Well,
You don't
again,
think
it's
we
just going
should-
back to what if the police officer is called, what can he do about that?
hey, somebody needs to get out and move that car into that parking stall.
Yeah, it gives them the ability to say that, if it's complaint driven, but it doesn't give them the ability to drive by and go, there are too many cars here, start writing parking
and
tickets.
he wouldn't do it, but
But it does give them a little leeway to do something.
if you have
Is
10
there any
off-street
way-
parking stalls and nobody uses them, what good are they?
Is there any way that the owner of the property shall encourage tenants to utilize off-street parking? Something so that they.
yes, you could
I
put
mean,
that in
that's all-
there,
that's all
but
it has nothing, it means nothing other than they're gonna
Doesn't-
notify their tenants that, hey, we want you to be, the city wants us to be off-street. But then,
anytime you just say encourage, I don't think that's
What
gonna.
I know,
what
it
do we
doesn't
do
do
with home
anything, but-
businesses and things right now?
Well, we regulate the parking and the amount of traffic.
Isn't this the same thing?
Well, they have to have a business license to
But
do it.
with that, do we regulate that they have, I mean, where they park? I think they have to have it, but I don't think we regulate where they park. If they legally park on the street, once again, I think there's no enforceable action against them. They have to provide it, but if the customer that's coming to the in-home business parks legally on the street, even if the neighbor complains, I don't think the police can come and say, move that car into that parking stall.
But they can if the ordinance.
If the ordinance
If the
says it
ordinance says, shall utilize all residents, all occupants, overnight occupants, all overnight occupants shall utilize provided parking, off-street parking. You know, then okay, are they gonna go out there and write a ticket? Well, there's nothing they can write a ticket for, but that they can go out and go, hey, these extra cars need to be moved onto the lot. Cause you gave them they have something.
Seems like if you're running an Airbnb, you could say, hey, we've got 3 off-street parking stalls, use them.
Right, and that's what we're trying to get them to do. How do you do that?
Is leave it in the hands or on the shoulders of the owner, the host.
Yeah, but
more than
require
anything.
Yeah, cause I mean, some of the ones we've rented, right? They say that, you know, I mean, the host is saying, you're required to be there. I don't know what they'd do if we didn't, but, right? But I agree, the best enforcement would be the host enforcing.
Well, in some cities, you notice you know, and it's some streets, but cul-de-sacs definitely in some cities is the case that during a certain period of the year, which might be during snow removal time, there is no on-street parking, period.
Some HOAs do that.
Yeah.
Brenda
Overnight.
tries to do that. That's for snow removal.
Well, it speaks to ordinances in general. If we're going to write ordinances and we're not going to require that they follow them, why write them?
I still go back to that, it needs to be encouraged that, you know, that they utilize the assigned parking.
I mean, what if, so we require this information packet right here. I mean, what if we change this from just parking requirements, that they need to provide parking location, you know, identified parking location and map, or something like that? So people know in their packet, this is where I'm supposed to park or something, and these are how many stalls are available for me.
Or if they invite in the packet, and it says, please use all off-street parking, you know, or something, I don't know, please is, you know, whatever, but I mean, I don't know.
I don't understand. So if we have a noise ordinance, it's not enforceable. We have a off-street parking ordinance, not enforceable. We have a fence ordinance, it's not enforceable.
They are, we just need to write it however you want.
Why write them if they're not gonna be enforceable? Is my point.
Well, I do think the parking needs to be, we need to require it to be provided.
Yes, and that's in the ordinance.
And I think it should be utilized by overnight guests. Be utilized by overnight guests, you know, now, the officer, like I say, he's not gonna be able to come around and knock on this, run license plates, he's not gonna do that, but if it's complaint driven, he knocks on the door, says, hey, does anybody have a car parked there? Yes, you need to move it off street. Done, they walk away, no one gets a ticket, they're just enforcing.
So how would you
And
word
if
that?
there's 5 cars and only 3 off-street parking stalls, at least 3 of those 5 cars have to go use the off-street parking.
Right, exactly, I mean, you're just encouraging them to do it, giving the police a little bit of authority to say, you guys need to use these off-street parking. You know, that's
So
all, that's
how
what.
would you word that, Mike?
So I would say you'd
Provide and use.
shall provide, and overnight guests shall shall utilize provided parking spaces, something.
I think that's okay.
Yeah,
I think that's okay.
yeah.
And that, cause then, I mean, like I say,
Yeah.
the cops aren't gonna be able to enforce it, show up and start writing tickets. Now, I guess they could if they say.
And I think that's as far as we need to go for now, it would be, as long as we're requiring that they have the adequate spaces. If it becomes a problem down the road, then we address it then. But at least
Yeah.
we've required that there be the adequate spaces there off-street. And, I mean, the biggest thing you see around Lindon is, on Sundays, somebody's having a baby blessing or missionaries, whatever, the whole streets.
That's not overnight.
No, but it's not overnight.
So
and
are
that's
you
a big
saying not require and use, or?
No, I say we require it, and you could say and use in there, I have no problem with that either, but beyond that, I say we let it see how it plays out.
And
If it's not, then if it becomes a problem, we could.
We address it,
I
yeah.
look on back how I would've wrote it, how I would've enforced it. I would've went, knocked on the door, said, hey, please move your stuff off the street. You know, code says you gotta be off the street for all your overnight residents.
Yeah,
And if I come back 2 hours later and they're still there, well, I can take this code and I can write them up. If it's like where I was, you can write a municipal code violation on a parking site as other, you know, I don't know if they do here, but you could
Yeah.
for non-compliance, but it's not something you're,
But
the first thing
the
you're gonna
host could
do.
also be notified.
Yeah,
What if you're just staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning? What's overnight?
Well, I don't think we need
Guest
to,
there that
True.
is
I don't
they're
think we
just
need to,
staying up late.
and
and-
unless it becomes a problem, I don't think we need to discuss all the what ifs, you know.
that's true.
I think we can, if we're requiring the parking and asking that they use that
That the overnight guests utilize the
Use the
provided parking.
provided parking, I think that's far enough.
Yeah.
I don't know the rest of you. And
so
then if
Mike,
it
would that
becomes
put
a
it in the
problem,
packet then that they're required to have available for their guests to see?
Yeah, they'll just have to tell them what the parking requirements
That would be
are.
our parking requirements. That would be right.
Yeah, I think that's what we do for now.
And then if it becomes a problem, we
Yeah.
can become more rigid on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go through the other ones real quick. This is one per cul-de-sac, and it's measured as those returns on the cul-de-sac, so where it comes down, kind of that throat area, so just to the radiuses. So if you're butting the radiuses or around, then we can only have one per cul-de-sac.
Okay, so that's good. So, because in my mind, when you said that, it's like you could have 5 houses on the straightaway and then it gets to, you're just saying the keyhole or whatever
Yeah,
is, okay.
You
yep.
have a long street coming into a cul-de-sac.
Clogged.
Yeah, so you could have them along the street,
Okay.
but then only one in the cul-de-sac,
Okay.
starting at those returns where
I see.
it comes out.
That makes sense.
Okay. And then Jared alluded to this, but the city would send notice to the abutting property owners, so those who touch the property to the short-term rental, giving them the name of the owner or responsible party and contact information, so that they can hopefully just take care of the issues if there's a concern. The last item, before the ordinance said, you know, outdoor pools, hot tubs, outdoor sports courts shall not be used between the hours of 11 and 7. A couple things I wanted your comments on. I changed this to no outdoor activities or amplified music are permitted at the short-term rental between the hours of, and I changed this from 10 to 7. Those are the hours in our commercial farm zone, is 10 to 7. But in our parks, it's, I think it's 11 to 6 or 11 to 7 in the parks. So I wanted your feedback on there if you wanted it.
I like 10 to 7.
10 to
I think that
7.
Keeps the peace better for
Yeah.
neighbors.
Especially if you, just in a residential
And
area.
again, if people aren't a nuisance, nobody's even gonna know if they went
They're not
to 10.
gonna
That's
do
right.
No.
Yep.
It at least gives us teeth. if
Outdoor
they-
activities is a little vague. but I mean, is them sitting out around the fire in the fire pit in the backyard.
And that was one of the examples that
activity.
was brought to me. Do we
Yeah.
want to list every single, or do we just say outdoor activities?
I think
We
it's
leave
okay
it
to
here, but I
have,
mean, but it's a little vague.
It
but
is a
I-
little vague.
Maybe intentionally so,
Uh-huh.
so that's fine.
I think it's okay to have it kind of general, you know, I don't
And-
think it has to be real specific, and people know if they're keeping other people awake and.
Well, especially if people see that it's 10 to 7, if they are gonna sit out by a fire pit, they're probably gonna be quieter if they know they wanna sit there longer.
Right,
You
exactly.
know, and visit, that's not a
Yeah.
problem. That's
10
not
is,
a
I like
problem.
10. 10's better than 11. 11's too late in a residential neighborhood.
Yeah, 10 to 7 would be the way to go.
So I'd be glad to answer any other questions or comments you
Just
have.
a couple thoughts, maybe. I am aware of two, at least two Airbnb units that are, where the owner is occupying the front. So in any of this, and I'm just thinking out loud, does that change any requirements in that scenario versus the entire home being used as an Airbnb?
Changes just parking. So, in the parking code section, we said and I kept this from the last time. Says if a property owner lives on site and uses an accessory apartment as a short-term rental, the parking requirement shall be in addition to the required parking for the single-family home. So you're probably gonna have to have 4, minimum of 2, and we require at least 1 for an accessory apartment, internal accessory apartment. So you've gotta have 4 parking stalls.
Could somebody have a home with an accessory apartment and another unit as an Airbnb?
I think you could, that's what Commissioner
And another unit.
Johnson brought that up last
Let's
time.
say they have an outbuilding that's got an apartment on top. There is an Airbnb that has an outbuilding with an
Yeah.
apartment on top. I don't know if they have an accessory apartment in the home, but that's what I'm referring
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
They would still need, I guess, to meet all the parking requirements,
Yeah.
but now you've got.
And I know of one who's split their basement, half's an accessory apartment and have another small Airbnb. So I think it happens. Well, I know it happens.
It happens maybe, but I didn't know that was legal.
Is it?
Would be under this ordinance, that would be legal to have, a home, an accessory apartment, and a short-term rental.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
But you'd have to have, under this, you'd have to have parking for all 3.
You'd have
And
to
I
have
think that's what would limit most of them, would be the parking for
at
all.
least 6 parking stalls.
Yeah.
But as far as,
They got a permit, they have to show those parking stalls.
They do, yes.
but as far as accessory apartments, they aren't supposed to have,
They're only supposed to have one,
they
right?
can't have 2 accessory apartments, right?
Yes, you only need 1 for an internal accessory apartment. But we're saying now, if you're gonna use that as a short-term rental instead of an accessory apartment, you gotta add 1 more parking space.
Well,
That
and
makes
I
sense.
guess my question is that you're saying that they can have an accessory apartment and then the rest of their basement or whatever, they can have an Airbnb in that portion? But a family cannot have 2 accessory apartments in their basement.
That's
Is that right?
correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
If-
But they
if-
could have an accessory apartment and an Airbnb.
Yes,
And-
unless you want to write something in here that prohibits that.
What's the time, I guess what prevents someone from permanently renting an Airbnb? I mean, is there something in the ordinance that says in order to be a short-term rental,
30
is there
days, doesn't it?
30 days or less?
So that's the state code. They distinguish between a permanent rental and a short-term rental by that 30-day limit.
Okay, so one person can't be there more than 30 days.
That's correct.
Okay.
It says, right in the definitions, it says offers for occupancy for fewer than 30 consecutive days.
So that just mirrors what the state law says on that.
They have to keep it short, otherwise you have tenant problems where, now you gotta evict me after you go over a certain period. They have, then eviction starts to be an issue.
That's correct.
So,
I mean, do you like that, having that someone could do all three? I mean, if,
I think it's a pretty rare case. I don't think we need to address it, but.
Yeah.
Well, I do know there's quite a few homes with, well, I even know some that have, multiple accessory apartments, legal or not, but
They should,
I know they shouldn't, but
they do.
but
it is-
I'm
it is
guessing
illegal.
it's more common than,
It might be. I think we would see some more of these types of Airbnb units with the temple. I mean, I honestly think that we'll see more of those, and we'll just have to maybe
See what
adjust or
problems come from
evaluate,
it.
but.
Yeah.
and I'm fine as long as there's provided parking. I guess, I don't know I mean, if they can really have 6 off-site parking spots?
I mean, I've got a 3-car garage, so I can park 3 in there and 3 in the driveway and 2 in my
Yeah.
RV pad. I mean, it's possible.
And we've got
But
a,
the reality is too, though, like, it's a lot of work to do these Airbnb units. I mean, you're cleaning constantly, and so
Yeah,
it's
I've
not
known more that
always,
have tried it and then quit doing it.
it's
than-
not as profitable as, people tend to think it is, and,
my wife stayed in one this weekend at a volleyball tournament in Logan for my daughter, and the lady lived downstairs, and then she had her upstairs divided into 2 separate units. It was a barn-shaped building. It was her home, and then she rented 2 different units upstairs.
for Airbnbs.
Yeah, now this ordinance wouldn't allow that because you can only rent to 1 party at a time. You couldn't rent to 2 parties. And so,
Originally, there was something when you first came to us about no parties, no,
yes, that's right. I did take that out.
okay.
Oh, you did?
And I just put no events. Sorry, I didn't highlight that one.
I saw it in here. It's,
I don't like to restrict too much, because that's what a lot of people will rent those, to have a.
So I changed that to events. So I took out family reunions, wedding receptions. I said a short-term rental shall only be used for lodging accommodations and not rented or leased for events or similar activities or operations.
Family reunions not allowed?
So I took that out.
So
So
it
this
is.
would
So
be,
it is allowed.
this would be
Okay.
event type things, so.
If you can't sit there and advertise, party it down at such and such's house, and then you rent the Airbnb for a party, a big party, that would,
or your wedding reception.
or events, Okay, so that.
Yes, thank you for
so you-
catching that.
So you lighten that up a little bit.
Yes.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, because some of these big homes lend themselves to a large social event. Based on the layout, it has a pool, a jacuzzi, a fire pit, a this and that, or.
Yeah, see, when my wife rented that one this weekend, she was talking to the lady, and North Logan requires, if you have a short-term rental, the owner has to live there. And so that's what North Logan's requirement was.
Yeah, I think the day short-term rentals become a real problem, that's the solution that a lot of people will go to
Have them owner
Try to-
occupied.
Yeah, cause
Try to quell it.
if the homeowner lives there, nobody's gonna be chasing down somebody in San Diego that owns the place,
Yeah.
and, yeah.
I think that's what, if it
Yeah.
becomes a problem in the future, that's
Yeah.
the easy solution.
I
But
think
for
we
right
maybe-
now, we leave it the way it
Maybe
is.
on-site management, because you could have a
Okay.
home with,
Yeah.
with an accessory apartment, and you could have a caretaker
Yeah, true.
living in the apartment and renting out the rest. That would
That's
kind of
true.
be
Right.
less flexible.
Yeah, so that's,
You do have cities like some of these resort communities that are prohibiting short-term rentals altogether because it's affecting their available housing stock in the city and affecting the amount of affordable housing.
Right.
because they're not willing to rent it out, because they can get more on a short-term rental.
Yeah.
Lodging taxes and everything else they don't get.
Well, in this situation, don't they get the taxes since they're coming and
Airbnb
pulling a
does
permit?
collect,
Yes, yeah, your transient room tax, the cities get, we get about 7,000 a year right now off short-term rentals.
Yeah,
Is
and that's collected by Airbnb.
Airbnb is, yes, and it's,
Airbnb
the
takes it out of
state.
the host's payout, yes.
yes, and then that's remitted to the city through the state.
I know there's lots of problems, but again, as your wife used it, I was in an Airbnb last week. They're fun to go use in a lot of circumstances. I much prefer an Airbnb than a
Yeah, I know
hotel.
people that prefer it.
So I really enjoy as an option for lodging, and that's why I just,
Well, and all the hotels were booked out. There wasn't any available hotels because of this volleyball tournament.
Ah.
And so that's how she was able to stay up there.
I think it's good, just, and we go with it, and if some problems surface, we deal with it.
Okay.
I agree.
It's like a great starting point.
Well, hopefully we've addressed the feedback we had last time, so.
Thank you.
Great. Well, let's close the public hearing, and then if there's any additional discussion, we can have that and then do the motions. Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting's unanimous. Do you have any additional questions or any additional discussion for Mike, or have we
So
gone over?
we're just voting, we're just saying that we want this to move forward to council.
That's right.
We're gonna recommend.
Approval.
Would someone like to make a motion?
With those, that we're gonna add the parking requirement.
Shall use provided parking spaces.
Shall provide, but then we always, and overnight occupants shall utilize designated parking spaces.
Yes, if that's what's voted on.
Okay, so
If that's what's
provide
voted on.
additional parking
Yeah.
spaces, and then, what was the other things, Scott?
Shall.
Overnight occupants shall utilize designated off-street parking.
Okay. Okay, Scott, do you want to make a motion on that?
So. Let me get to it, I wasn't paying attention on this side of it.
I guess, Mike, you gave us the option, before you make the motion, Scott,
Okay, go ahead.
what did we decide? There were options on occupancy.
We decided just to take that out for now.
Okay.
Do that via.
And it's just
Parking.
gonna be
Parking.
parking is only.
Just base it on the parking.
Not seeing the
The
most.
strike occupancy.
Okay.
Be good to, in your motion to recommend approval, striking the occupancy requirement and adding the parking language that residents
That includes,
utilizing the off-street parking. Yeah.
okay, I can try to do this.
Okay,
So we're striking the
occupancy
Okay.
requirement.
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 2023-17-0 with the following changes. Strike the occupancy requirement and add the requirement that overnight occupants of the short-term rental utilize the provided parking spaces.
Well, the parking spaces are required.
That's already required in the
It's
Okay,
ordinance.
it's
Part of
all
the
right,
ordinance.
okay, and so then they,
All we're doing is saying that we are telling that they should use them.
okay, they shall utilize the parking. Okay, have you got that, Mike?
Yep.
Okay. I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Now we'll see how the council feels towards that, huh? Okay,
Okay.
and commissioner reports or anything commissioners would like to bring up tonight? I just had a question. This tour of Songbird Cove, that's October 12th at 5, is that
Yeah,
right?
This Thursday at 5
Thursday.
o'clock.
Yeah. I can't attend that. I've got another commitment, and I would really like to, and so would my husband. But
And the mayor can't attend either, so I'm gonna work on another time
Oh, that would be terrific.
the-
That'd be awesome, I like
In
Wednesday.
addition to Thursday, or,
Yeah, I don't know when that's going to be yet.
because I was planning on going there Thursday myself,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we'll be there on Thursday.
Yeah, I would very much like to, tour.
If you can make it this Thursday, I don't know this for sure, but I believe the Corbridges may be providing a refreshment or something like that, so,
That would be nice, yeah.
if that works for you.
Yeah, I'm not available any Thursday now, I made a commitment,
Okay,
a long-term commitment every Thursday night.
so I'll see if I can set one up for another time as well.
Yeah, see if they will, this, because there's a number of it sounds like it, there's several of us that would like to attend that can't.
Yeah, I'm gonna
A
On
question on
Thursday.
Try to
that
be there.
development.
5's hard, but I
Did
can
we
try.
require a concrete fence between them and the church?
We did not, because it's not a resident.
You didn't see that last time?
They did on,
Nice to see that they're willing to do that.
I thought they kept chain link next to the church.
Well, chain link was the churches. They put up a concrete solid fence.
I wasn't aware that they did that, because that wasn't on the plans.
They did
Yeah,
it.
because in theory, the ordinance
Happen to.
requires the commercial business to do it,
You
but
go-
then
you go
they
down to
can't-
that
they can't go
building,
back and
yeah.
switch to commercial until.
Yeah, they're,
Cataracts.
It's kind of nice to see somebody
Go
do
ahead,
something.
He's got to be excused. Okay, what was the other question?
with that, I can't find the email real quick. Where are we supposed to meet on Thursday?
At the townhomes.
The finished town, there's the two.
Yeah, the yellow ones.
The non-red ones.
Yeah, the non-red ones. Yeah, cream colored. Yeah.
There is a model one ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
at 5.
Well, if you will just let them know that there's a number of us that would like to.
I will. Yeah, I had that request last Thursday or Friday from the mayor.
Okay, and then also, Thursday is also the Meet the Candidates night.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too.
And my question on that, will that be on YouTube or on, because I won't be able to come to that either, and I'd like very much to listen to
I'd like to go
that.
back and
I know
listen to
they've
it.
broadcast them in the past. Do you know for sure, Brittany?
I'd love to have it on YouTube.
I
so
know
can
they
watch it.
usually do. Let me ask Adam tomorrow and get back with you.
Okay, yeah, I would like very much to be able to watch that, but that Thursday night, I just can't be there.
I noticed there was something came out from the city that indicated they've begun to put the sidewalk, or at least the curb and stuff, up along the temple on Center Street.
The temple did that, yep.
Oh, the temple did that, okay.
Yes.
But now I noticed just when Mary pulled something up a little while, just sitting there for a brief moment, I mean, there's some people's property extends way out. Is there gonna be a problem? Is the city gonna have to go in and claim some of that property? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so there is a right-of-way difference between, I can pull that up if you give me just a
They've
second.
asphalted the road up there and everything. They're right on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted to get their curb, gutter, and sidewalk and asphalt in before.
2 years.
The road narrows, or the right-of-way narrows,
To the left right there, is that when that one property sticks out into the road? To the left?
yeah, yes. I believe that's
There's
been
several.
dedicated. Oh, yeah, those are typical. That has been dedicated somehow to the city. There is a portion of some properties that the city will need to go in and buy a foot or so. The road does narrow, I can't remember exactly where. Is it,
Right west here, Tim.
I think, yeah, it narrows here. That's right. I believe so, I can't remember
Big old
exactly.
trees there that
Yeah, I know that guy,
gonna have to.
the minute the temple was announced, he was worried his tree's gonna get taken, so he's been talking to the city engineer about trying to do a bulb out there around his tree, similar to what they did in front of Walker Farms. So, I know they're currently designing it right now, they're working with, an engineering firm to put all the civil plans together, so that can go out to bid next year, and then,
I believe it's in the fall of next year when we would do the curb, gutter and sidewalk and rebuild the road and everything.
And is that an estimated completion? I just heard it, next fall for the exterior to be complete.
I think I think we're hearing early spring of 2025 for the Temple open house or.
Yeah, that's why for an
Around
open
there.
house, like
Early spring
March,
2025,
March, April of 2025.
still 2 years.
Yes. Yeah.
And I heard maybe
Year and a
towards
half.
the end,
Oh, could be.
so I don't know,
Yeah.
of 2025.
Actually, I shouldn't say Temple open house. I should say the developer's telling us they'll have construction hopefully finished by spring 2025. So when
Well, I was in a meeting Sunday where someone said open house,
okay,
March 2025 is the projection, but
yeah.
that's probably fifth hand, by the time I got it.
Orem Temple's been done for a while, but they held off on, announcing when the open house was going to be, so.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. I would like Mike to kind of go over last city council meeting, and I listened to it online because it was too hard to get down here with a big cast on my leg and that, but I listened to it all. But that was quite a meeting, and I would just like, did you listen to that?
No, I didn't. I was gone and busy, so yeah, I'm curious the outcome.
You would like to listen to it on YouTube. But it was a long meeting and a lot of discussion, and it finally, I'll let Mike go over that, but it finally came down to a 3-2 vote.
On what issue?
Buying of the purchasing the deeper property.
So the council voted, so in 2016, we signed a development agreement with Ivory Homes. The development agreement gave us 5 years to work with Ivory and the Andersons on developing this deeper portion as commercial. We went through COVID, it was just a bad time. We didn't get a chance to really try to get a developer in here to develop this deeper portion. We reached out to Ivory recently and said, hey, what's the possibility of being able to purchase this 8 acres right here? So that this corridor is 800 feet deep instead of just 500 feet to this line. Ivory said they were willing to sell that to us. Council's held a number of meetings recently and discussions about whether they should purchase it. They voted last Wednesday that they want to do a bond and purchase this 8 acres right here. And then they will look at working with the developer and selling that in the future for development purposes.
I thought it was interesting, Ivory's representative that was here, several of the council said, oh, do we have to decide this right now? And
He's going, yes.
and Randy Powell said, I don't know if I want to make a vote on this because, there's a number of us that aren't going to be council after the election. And Ivory Homes just said, no, you have to decide now because we're going to go ahead and put homes in there if the city's not going to purchase it. We've been working with this for 6 months, and we're either gonna, you either gotta buy it or we're gonna go ahead and develop it.
What is the argument in favor of doing that? Just so that the city could maybe develop that square that we've been talking about, or have more room to do that, or?
They've had several, the mayor's been now actively pursuing these larger entities, and everybody's basically saying that with just this 500-foot, they said, yeah, we can give you a bunch of strip malls, but we can't give you that deep, like for example, like a Fat City or something wants to come in and do an entertainment venue or something in there. Those people are all saying, yeah, we like the idea, but we can't do it on 500 feet. So according to the mayor, there are several people that have been interested in doing something there, but it's not deep enough in order for us to to get somebody in there that fulfills our original vision for that area. And so they're gonna bond for it, they're gonna buy it, and then of course resell it when the developer comes. So it's basically save it now, save it and preserve our vision, or let it go now and then basically say our vision was gone.
You would be really interested in listening to the discussion on YouTube of the meeting and listening to the mayor's presentation on that to see why she felt like it was really important to not just let it go to, be 500 feet and go to housing. But
It'd
there
just be
were,
nice if a private investor came in and bought that rather than a city
well, and
Right,
that's right.
buying that.
Now they can, this private investor can come in and buy it from the city.
I mean, now.
Well,
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
and I don't know if Ivory was willing to sell
Ivory
to a
wasn't
private
willing to do
investor.
Willing
No.
to sell it to anybody besides the city, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was.
Ivory just
Well,
wants to
I
get it
would
over
want
and
to
done
sell,
with.
they wanted to develop
Yeah.
into homes.
Right.
I'm just concerned in the future there'll be someone that will use that and want the city to give it to them as an incentive to come in. I mean, that's just,
That was one of the concerns.
that would be
Yeah,
one of
that
my
was
big
it.
concern with that, is that it eventually it'll be a bargaining chip since the city owns it, but.
And every,
That was a concern in the.
in every
meeting.
redevelopment project area I've been a part of, you always have to do this return on investment. And so, like when I helped bring the Winco into South Salt Lake.
Right.
South Salt Lake bought the property for I can't remember now, I think it was $4 million. They sold it to Winco, they sold it to the Boyer Company for $2 million. But because the city would get about $250,000 a year in sales tax, in 8 years, it paid for itself, and then it all got that, the city received that sales tax for decades. And so, there's always this return on investment we have to evaluate. We shouldn't just be giving $2 million of property away. What's gonna be our return on this as a city and to benefit the public of Lindon City, so.
I was aware of it, and I wrote the letter to council, and one of the points I made up is, up here, they were willing to spend $2 million to buy additional property at Hollow Park, but that's just spend money for Hollow Park. There was no potential income off of it. This, at least, there's a substantial potential for income, and even at a later date, if we change our mind, if it doesn't pencil out, we'll always be able to sell it for some use. But anyway.
It's all back to Ivory, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and Mike did an excellent job too. The city really grilled him on, or the council did, with questions on this too.
I will go and watch it.
But it is really interesting. It's really informative for the commission to watch that
Last Monday.
presentation. And the mayor did do a very excellent job, and the council, some of them struggled with it, and rightfully so. They want to make sure that they were making a good decision for the city.
And I actually talked to several of the candidates, and most of the candidates that I talked to seem to be for it. Most of the candidates support the vision of Lindon Village.
Well, I know that Steve, what's his last name?
Stewart.
Stewart and Lincoln Jacobs were both sitting
Yeah.
here as a part of things. So, anyway, it would be probably because whatever happens on it, the
The
commission will
concept
be
of that
involved.
is gonna be a little harder to do as this Utah City gets started.
It may be.
True, yeah. But the mayor indicated that she thought that there is movement toward people wanting that, but they needed the deeper section in order to motivate them to come in.
Mhm.
But whether that occurs, that's no guarantees.
And whether you would have been for that or against it, I thought the mayor did an excellent job as far as presenting that. So, So, anyway, I think it would be to all of your benefit to listen to that. Because I'm sure it will involve us at some point,
Yeah.
so. Do you have
Well,
anything else,
It was
Mike, or-
mentioned
Uh-huh.
that not too long ago, we sold that property down by the boat harbor to get out of debt.
Down by where?
The boat harbor.
Yeah, we sold the vineyard, we sold a piece of property, the vineyard,
Just a piece, yeah.
to get out of debt, and so we're reversing that decision, but.
And they did have Lewis Young, Robertson, Birmingham, they're now called LRB, but they're a financial municipal advisory firm. I mean, they did have them look at this. They said this is a low-risk
Right,
debt. You know, this is something the city can afford, and, you know, through a sales tax bond and some, you know, some RDA funds as well. And so,
So it's strictly off sales tax, the bond's gonna be,
you know, they haven't done everything on that yet, but that would be a main contributor to the paying the bond, yes.
okay. And is it my understanding that, this is just out of that sales tax currently is decreasing? Our revenue is currently decreasing?
Yeah, I
think?
wish I had the chart to show you. It is decreasing, but it's still the highest. You know, compared to 2008, we're extremely higher than we were in 2008.
Why is it decreasing?
I mean, it's just that,
People are mined.
yes, I mean, 6 months ago, we were the highest ever, you know, and now
But
now we are going
with
down.
inflation and the economy or whatever.
Yeah,
it's-
but we are significantly higher than we were in 2008, so. And
that's
as
good,
we,
because 2008 was a really down year.
yeah, and as we start to get some of these other businesses on board, like the Kia dealership, you know, that'll be another 250,000 a year in sales tax that, you know, that we'll be able to have in the coffers as well, so.
I know the city manager, did he speak to it at the meeting? Because I know he was opposed to it.
Yes, he's got some very good documentation and graphs and things like that, so.
You say he was opposed?
He was opposed to it.
I didn't, at the meeting, he didn't necessarily bring that out.
I think he related some very good concerns and things for the
Right.
council to consider, and so.
I think his comments were more for the council to be objective in their decision and to help with the decision-making. I don't think
He didn't come across as being
I
opposed.
didn't think so. That wasn't my perception. So I thought it was more, I thought it helped more in the council having more objectivity to it. So,
I know it's a totally different location than the pony farm, but that was one of the arguments we always made, was that a 900-foot deep commercial lot was not as much a value. And again, I know it's a little different location, but that sat on that, you know, was available for quite some time, and none of these fun centers or whatever might go on that, seemed to be interested at the time in developing that in that way. So,
And I think it is different. I mean, you're dealing with, you know, 70 acres of vacant property in total compared to
8.
whatever that was over there at the pony
Oh,
farm.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
10 acres or 8 acres.
Councilmember Broderick did bring up his concerns as far as it maybe taking away from some of the road funds and things like that. So that was a concern he had.
So was it Broderick, and so the two that voted against it were
Powell and Broderick.
Hal and Broderick?
Mhm. But they had some very legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
You know, they did, so. Anyway, I don't have anything else on
I
that.
just have a couple items.
Okay,
As a reminder, our meeting in 2 weeks is going to be that planning commissioner training. It'll be at the Vista at Cedar Hills. So it'll be it'll be from 6 to 8 o'clock. We'll have dinner. We've also invited Vineyard, Pleasant Grove, Highland. I think that's it. So those planning commissioners to attend. The Utah chapter of the American Planning Association is trying to have someone there so they can video it and send out to other planning commissioners. So this will help with 2 hours of your required yearly training.
That sounds really fun.
And so hopefully we'll have about 30 or so planning commission members there. That's what we're trying to get.
So you'll be sending out the location and time?
Yes.
That's on the 24th.
Yep, it's right there at the golf course in Cedar Hills. That's their clubhouse building.
Up there against the hillside?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, I'll send out the time and everything. If you could let me know for sure if you'll be there, we just need an RSVP for dinner. So,
Well,
I'll be there.
I can be there.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
okay,
This is the 24th.
yes.
Right. So it's our regular planning commission.
I was already
evening.
planning on being here, so yeah, I'll be here.
And now you'll get a dinner out of it too, so.
What time is that at?
6 o'clock. So the League of Cities and Towns will have someone there presenting, and then a gentleman by the name of Wilf Summercorn. He is the representative for the Utah chapter APA for legislative issues. He also works. He was a community development director for Salt Lake County and Davis County for years. He's also now working with the Utah Land Use Institute on training cities and things as well on land use issues. So he does a really good job.
So Mike, with that, we still have to do the required laws. Can you
Still have to do
resend-
powers and duties.
Do you send that link to us?
Yes.
So
Yep.
we could.
So, yeah, still have to do powers and duties on your own, and one other one, and then this will take care of 2 hours.
So is it at the golf club?
Yes, it's called the Vista.
Doesn't our continuing ed for real estate count
Yes.
for all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, just 2 other things. I should have been doing this for years now if you want me to, but would you like to be invited to ribbon cuttings?
I think it would be fun.
And I apologize, I haven't done that, but I invite the council all the time. I'm like,
If it's something that came before us.
Might be fun on something we worked on, you know.
Yeah.
Something
and-
that came before us,
Okay.
yeah. We make it or don't.
okay. And then lastly, and we don't have to have a long discussion about this, and maybe we can at a future meeting, but our city manager and I were talking today and kind of wanted to get your thoughts. We already have people converting some of the basements down at Ivory Homes and at Anderson Farms to accessory apartments. Is that something and we prohibit them, but is that something we want to consider embracing and allowing them in the Anderson Farms
I
development?
thought
Provide
that was,
off-street parking for that.
That's something we would have to, right now, if it's an internal accessory apartment, it's 1 parking space. So it would be, they all have 2-car garages, so you'd have parking, you'd have to amend it to say you could allow parking on the driveway and not behind the front setback.
it seemed like that was part of the development agreement or something.
It is in the development agreement that they can't have them, but,
Right.
And it is part of what we had the right to do under HB, whatever it was, 82 or whatever,
mhm.
to,
The concerns I have is that a lot of people probably bought down there with the idea that there wouldn't be. Now we're going to embrace it.
Mhm.
Now you're gonna offend those people.
Yeah,
And
I don't
the part that really bothers me a little bit is they sort of sold us the 55 plus, but then it wasn't deed restricted and they let anybody in the 55 plus section that they have down there. And there is like 0 frontage. I mean, there's 0, I can't even imagine that they have somewhere to do off-street parking. So if we allow it,
Well, and a lot of the lots are really small down there.
little teeny ones, especially in the 55. The 55 pluses are real small. My daughter's in another area, and hers are decent sized lots, but like she has a neighbor next door to her that has somebody coming and going constantly in it.
mhm.
yeah,
And they bought there thinking it wasn't, but it is now.
Okay.
we don't have, input from our resident commissioner down there too. I
That's
wonder-
right.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
might be a good thing to bring up when Karen is here too.
Why was this brought up? Was the city manager and you leaning toward embracing it?
We just had a discussion today and we know there are some. And so we're like, do we allow it? You know, do we, and he's like, well, why don't we just discuss it with the commission tonight and see what their opinions are, so. We're not one way or another, we just wanted to have that, see what your thoughts were.
It would be really good to bring that up when Karen is here.
In
'cause
November?
she-
Okay.
Yeah, she is very aware of situations down there and has been kind of the voice of people down there on a lot of situations.
Yeah,
So I think it would be good to
I
have
think
her input on it.
To allow it, I think we'll bring in gridlocks, bumper to bumper parking throughout the development based on,
Small of lots,
because
yeah.
the size of the lots.
They're so small and narrow and, yeah.
okay,
But I would like to hear her input on it. I think that would be valuable as a resident that lives there.
sounds good. That's all I had.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Let's see, I was gonna ask you something.
Okay.
Let me just think what it was. Maybe it's
Well,
not,
hurry up.
needs to be, well, we'll do it another time.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dave, you wanna go home?
Okay.
Oh,
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, thanks to all of you.
Oh, it's already over.
Oh,
They
we
killed
have
us.
some treats back there, though, you guys. Well, Mike,